Okay, I'll press it now. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Motivate Mix podcast. My name is Adam Claxton of Claxton Coaching. I'm a life coach, motivational speaker, and help people with all things mindset, motivation, and mental health. As part of Motivate magazine, we are here to discuss our articles, which featured in the most recent issue for Inspirational Man Edition. And I am pleased to announce my guest is Mr. Mark Terrell. Good afternoon, Mark.
Good afternoon, Adam.
How are you today?
Oh, very well, thank you. Yes, all is good, thank you.
Good. So you are the reluctant leader. If you'd just like to do a little bit of an introduction about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so the Reluctant Leader .academy is my website and my business, where I help business owners that have started a business with technical know-how. Business has grown around them, people have grown around them, and then they realize that they're spending too much time managing people. And there's two things that happen. They feel that they are not doing enough of the things that motivate them. So they miss that. And also they lack the skills to get the best from others. So those are the two things I focus on, is the skills to lead a team. And secondly, firstly, making sure that you as a business owner know what motivates you and make sure that is your priority, to make sure that you have the energy to run your business. Okay.
And where did this idea come from for you? So is it like your background? Did it lead you on to better things?
Absolutely. So this is very much to do with my own story. I joined a family retail business straight from school back in the 80s. I, at the time, didn't really know what I was going to be doing. And so my dad had already earmarked me to join the business. And when it came to me leaving school, he made that decision. He'd already sort of made it for me, although leaving school was quite but tricky for me, because I quite enjoyed it, and the thought of going on to do A-levels was actually quite appealing. But my dad sort of won the day, brought me into the business, and actually I really enjoyed the journey from, the shop floor through to taking over more and more of the responsibility. But then things caught up with me, and what I've just described, how I help my clients with that scenario, is that I ended up doing very little of what motivates me, and then spending most of my time managing people to the best of my abilities, but never having the training that was needed to lead a team. So my story is very much in line with what I help my clients with.
Yeah, so it's almost like a lesson learned, which now gave you the idea to then go, right, let's do what I should have, let's do what I didn't do.
Yes. Well, I think, obviously you're a coach as well, and I'm sure you probably resonate with this. Most coaches want to help people prevent them making the same mistakes that they've made in some way, or they've had some inspiration that they want to fast track somebody's progress, that they don't want them to have to spend years and years on something when they can probably learn it in, a quarter of the time or something. I think that's what spurs a lot of coaches on, and it definitely drives me forward, thinking that don't make the mistakes I made. You can do this a lot quicker and actually much better than I did. And I was successful. You could be a lot more successful than me.
Yeah, that's true. And going back to the article, so it is titled Taking the Easy Route. And like you said, you described childhood being the middle child. So
yes. Yeah.
You is quite passionate about being the middle child.
Well, I mention it, but no, I actually, a lot of people have got that middle child thing that they bring up, because, the middle child is not the oldest and not the youngest. So,
yeah.
And I did say in my article, tongue in cheek, that I'm the one in the middle that never really got the attention from their parents, but actually that wasn't true. But I think it's interesting when you talk about where you are within a family unit, whether you're first, middle, or last. There's always, if you think about it, there's always a scenario where you can say that you got the worst end of the stick, as it were.
Yeah.
So that's really why I mentioned it, because there's always something you can say about wherever you are on the hierarchy of your childhood and your peers, to think about what was not as you would liked it. But actually, the most important thing is remember that there's always positives in everything, and it's looking for them, isn't it?
Yeah, that's so true. And how many children do you have?
I have 2 daughters.
Okay.
Mm.
So how does the younger child feel?
Well, sometimes she
Or-
does actually say that, that, the oldest is always sort of taken the first option. They always get the first option because they're the oldest.
Yeah.
But then my eldest sometimes says, oh, yeah, but she's, I'm always the oldest, so I miss out on X, Y, and Z sort of thing. So I see it as a parent as well, that there's always some thing that comes back. It doesn't come back in a big way. I mean, it's no drama, but it is funny when now you mentioned it, that they do now and again sort of say little remarks about those sort of things.
And would you say you're softer on the younger child because you learned from the experiences of the older one?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, obviously, if you interview them, they'll probably have their own opinions on that. But I don't think so. I think I'm fairly fair with both of them. I treat them equally. I don't treat them as the eldest and the youngest, to be honest. But who's to say how good I am at that unless you bring my daughters on. Hopefully, you haven't got them lined up to join us.
No, I haven't. I promise. But yeah, it's just really interesting that you did touch upon being the middle child. And a little bit like you, I relate to leaving school. I was 16, went to college, and I had that choice of, do I pursue a career within Tesco, who I worked for? So big employer, big retail company, as you're fully aware. And it was that decision. So you were at pretty much the same crossroads, having to make a decision with family business, going with it, or actually pursuing the qualifications and education that you're actually good at. So what was the final sort of nail in the coffin to say, right, I'm not going for the educational route, I'm going to go through retail and work with the family?
Well, as I mentioned in the article, it was taking the easy route. That's why I put it. The easy route was really the route of least resistance. If I went and stayed at school, then I would have my dad to answer to. And being the person that I am, I don't know whether I could have handled that very well. So for that reason, I joined the family business. And I'm not saying there was no regrets as such, but who knows what would have happened. But we can all say that, can't we? We have so many junctions on our lives where we have to say, yes or no, left or right, whatever. And who knows what might have happened if we took the other option. So, as things worked out, it was fine. But at the time, actually, when I realised the pressure I was put under as a 16-year-old to come and join a family business which had only been going for about 18 months. But it had been growing quite quickly. But there's no certainty behind that. But then whenever there is certainty, is there ever any certainty in anything you choose to do?
No. And what I really like is the motivation and inspiration that would give to, say, a 16-year-old who's watching this now, going through what we're currently in, to then make decisions about their future. I mean, what advice would you give to someone who's about to leave school and doesn't know what to do?
Well, it's been the same advice. I've put a dedication in my book, which is coming out, Motivated, the book coming out shortly. And in the front of that, I dedicated to my 2 daughters. And I just said in there, which I won't be quite word for word because I can't remember exactly, but it's basically choose your own path, make sure it's your own, and follow your heart. Because you will make mistakes. We're human beings, and actually, sometimes when you think you made a mistake, when you, in hindsight, a few years down the line, was actually the best thing that ever happened to you. So don't just treat things the best you can when they're happening to you, but don't take it as a failure or a mistake. Just say it's just a life lesson, as long as you haven't done something that you keep repeating. Obviously, if you're not learning the lessons and keep doing the same things, then more for you. Yeah.
And that's really inspiring. And it also shows no matter what age we are in, you were making those decisions in the 80s.
Yeah.
My decision was in the 99. when I was at that crossroad of education, or do I go for work? And we're here in 2021, and it is still that thing of do what makes you happy.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
Not something that just came around. It's something that's gone through time.
I think it's really important to remember here that the influences you have are very much about people that obviously influence you. And obviously at that age, as my parents that were influencing me, particularly my father. But whenever we are in our lives, there's always people that have influence over us. And I think one of the things that I've learned is you've got to realize that those people can only influence you and advise you from their position of what they've experienced.
Yeah.
And so if you always think of it like that, you think, well, okay, well, they've making that judgment and they're making that decision and whatever, and they give me advice based on their knowledge of their life. That's fine. I'll take it on board, but actually you can decide whether it's good or bad advice for you on a personal level. So I'm not saying it's good or bad for that person to give you the advice. It's actually for you to decide, is that right for me or is it wrong for me? Bearing in mind my path and where I'm going. And I think there's two distinct paths that we can go on with regards to work. There's the entrepreneurial line of which is mine, which has been pretty much mine from day one, joining the family business, taking over the reins. Or you could go into the employment route where you take each job as it comes and take progression and have that sort of mindset around work. But again, there is no right or wrong. Some people are never going to be cut out to be an entrepreneur and start a business, but other people, if they don't ever do it, they'll always regret it. So yeah, it's remembering that you're on your own path.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And from my perspective, where I help people with their mindset, motivation, mental health, etc., what we've discussed in terms of the influence and your story, you can see how you had to make that choice. And I think going forward with what we've got now, the pressure that 16-year-olds probably come under, young adults with social media, the making decisions, the trying to keep up with what society is doing. Your story there, you could strip it all back, go with this is what you're got to do to make yourself happy. Do you feel that social media is really detrimental to people's well-being and mental health at the moment? In terms
it's a good question. I think there's some great things about social media, but there's some things that are downside. So it's like anything in our lives, you've got to manage it, and if you don't manage it, then it can take over your life. And one of the things we've got to remember is that, and we're similar age, obviously you're a bit younger than me, Adam, but
only just
when we think about when we were growing up, teenagers into our 20s, we didn't have social media to distract us. We didn't have all that going on. We didn't have all these influencers telling us this, that, and the other, and we didn't have all that going on. So what we've got to do is think, well, what might it be like to have that bombardment? And how is that sort of affecting how things are sort of panning out with regards to whatever the group, is millennials or Gen Z, Gen Y or whatever they are called.
Yeah.
How are they dealing with it? Because again, going back to that, we can only deal with life with what we are subjected to. We're all on a path. And, when we talk about motivation, there is 3 elements to the things that motivate us or influence what motivates us. They are our past, our present, and our future. So when I say past, it's the things that have happened to us. The present is the things that are happening to us, our present circumstances. And then our future is the things that we aspire to in the future. So all those things are going on all at the same time. And so we're moving through those things. So our past is obviously growing as we sort of get older and get wiser in some instances. But those things are always going on with regards to motivation. We've got to realize that, some people are always trying to make sense of all this stuff. And with regards to being a coach, that's our role, to try and make some sort of sense for each individual that comes to us for help.
Yeah, it's great, and thank you for sharing your insights. I'm sure it's going to be really beneficial to those that are watching. And like you said, when you talk about motivation with the past, present, future, that's where we sit with anxiety, depression, and that present moment, isn't it? So it's decisions that you make now. We can't change anything that's happened, but we can learn from it. And I guess that's what you've put into your business now, where you've gone, everything that I've learned, I've put into doing something now, which is going to help people to move forward and evolve.
Yeah, definitely. I think living in the present is a lot to be said of that, because we can all, can all get too stuck in the past, but also too much focused on the future as well. So, with my clients, when they start setting goals and all that stuff, one of the things I remind them is that the goal is just there to move towards. It's not the be all and end all. You've got to enjoy the journey to get there. Yeah. So make sure you do enjoy the journey. It's one of the things I was never told. One of the things that I realized that actually what you've got to do is, yes, you want to get to set an intention, but all the steps along the way, you've got to enjoy them and celebrate them whenever you can.
So what do you like doing when you celebrate being in the present moment? What advice or what tips would you give to someone that needs to rein things in a little bit now? What would you say to do?
Oh, well, with regards to celebrations, you've just got to recognize where you've made great progress. So, as I shared with you and I've mentioned about my book, a year ago, and I've never thought I'd be writing a book this year, but, here it is. It's close to being published. So, it's a celebration to say, well, I've done something I never thought I'd be able to do. Here I am, not too far away from publishing a book, which has come around from a thought and then action. So that the key thing here is that we can have lots of thoughts, but thoughts only actually turn into something we can actually celebrate when we take action. So we've got to take some action, and goes back to that action might not always lead in where we want it to lead or where we thought it would lead us. But as long as we're taking action in a certain direction, one of the things I tell my clients as well, set a goal, but reaching it isn't necessarily what you're trying to do. You're setting an intention to go in that direction. If at some point in the process, you get a fork in the road where you think, well, actually I was heading up right, but actually I think left is better. As long as you take notice, then maybe that turning left at that point is the right thing to do, and you should always be aware of that.
Totally agree. And like you said, action, for me, when I go with my clients, action is a massive word, because it's the difference between doing something and not doing something. You can learn about something, you can do your research, you can plan, but unless you're putting in action, you're just going to be at the start wondering why you're not moving forward. So it is about, like you said, the journey is enjoying those moments of discomfort. There will be forks in the road. There'll be massive boulders in the road almost, but it's what you do then and the action that you take. So just because there's a moment where you become stuck, does that mean you stop or it's over, or do you look for another route? And I think, again, with you, with the book, that's inspired you along the way to go, there are other options you can look at.
Yeah, and there's little things like that, isn't it? When one of the things when you write a book, you have to buy ISBN numbers. So the other choice, when I went to buy it, you can buy one, and it's quite expensive. I can't remember exactly what, or you can buy 10, and 10 was like only about twice the price of one. So I thought, right, I'm going to buy 10, and that's an intention that this isn't the only book I'm going to write. So I've now got 9 ISBN numbers to do something with. So I can't see myself writing 9 books, but maybe 1 or 2 others. But
again, by setting that goal to think that you might have to do 9, if you'd write 6, you're nearer to your goal than you were if you just brought the 1.
That's right.
You would have stopped. So lots to take from that. So back to the retail then. So did you feel you had to learn how to retail, or was it part of the DNA once you got going?
Well, it was very much in my dad's DNA. It was a lifestyle. When he started on his retail journey, he was actually delivering on a bike. Okay. So, it's funny how things turn around. Deliveries of groceries is quite normal these days. Whereas back in the day, it was normal in a different way. It was the local shop with the guy that would go out on his bike. Obviously, it's far more high tech and ramped up now, but that's my dad started. Excuse me. On that journey from working in a retail grocery store and being sent out doing the deliveries, and then from there on, he then obviously progressed and joined a national retailer and became, I think it was a regional director or something like that. So, you know, he worked his way up, and it was the point when he got to that regional director, realized that actually he was spending a lot of time on the road, not really enjoying it as much as he used to. So the decision was made, you know, to buy a retail store of his own. And that was the business that I joined.
Yeah. And again, really interesting, because your dad's story and what he went through is very relatable to the book, in terms of you realized actually you're being busy but not actually achieving, so let's focus on how we're going to achieve. So
absolutely.
So maybe, and again, the DNA, the entrepreneurial side of you was already there, but we just had to wait a little bit of time to unleash it, maybe.
Yeah, well, there came a time when that business was sold. So, you know, and that business wasn't for sale. We just had a knock on the door. So, you know, and I could have quite easily just sold up and then got a job. But there's something in me that obviously didn't think that was the right thing to do. I couldn't really see myself working for somebody else. Not that I couldn't work for somebody else. I just thought it was not the right thing for me. So, you know, when someone suggested, why don't you know, become a coach, or, you know, and teach and others what you've learned along the way. And it's a strange thing when someone says that, because you think, well, do I know enough? But, you know, again, that's a self-limiting belief, as you know, you're aware of these things.
Definitely.
I realized that actually, gosh, 30 years, if I don't know about how to run a business, especially a retail business, the pitfalls and all that sort of stuff, then who does know? That's the thing.
Exactly. And like you said, you challenge yourselves going, can I actually do this? And the answer is yeah, but no one's ever put you in that spot to say, go and try something different, or actually empty everything that you know. Imagine if you emptied everything that you knew onto a book. I mean, you'd be selling more than 9 books for sure. And also it helps people at phases in life. So work is just one aspect of life that we have to go through. I'm sure if you wrote a book about love, family, hobbies, and then a master book which picked up all of it, you've got the knowledge, and because experience helped along the way.
Yeah, well, the first chapter of my book is business should be a lifestyle, not your life. Exactly. And I think a lot of people make that mistake, is that they let it, you know, take over their lives. And that's not because they don't enjoy it, is they're so obsessed that they get so engrossed in their business that other things that we can quite easily neglect. And there's no point in working your socks off because you love doing it, and then at the end of the day, you know, you've got no relationships, and all the other things have sort of fallen by the wayside. You've got to be balanced and realize that it's not the be all and end all. You've got to obviously put a lot of effort into it, but you know, there are other things that you've got to pay attention to as well.
And how long ago did you notice that you needed to have that balance? Because I mean, when I was in the corporate world, business was the be all and end all of life. Then I went through some personal experiences and actually realized, no, things have got to change. I need to get my ship in order again. So was there a defining moment for you where?
You know, we've all got things that have happened in our lives that are pivotal moments. I mean, probably the most pivotal moment was my divorce, which was not something that I didn't see coming. So I think when those sort of things happen, you reevaluate and think about, okay, this is an opportunity here to reassess actually what's important, what do I want in the future, and you know those things are important to take time to consider. And I've done a podcast series called the Reluctant Leader Podcast, and the question I've asked every single one of my guests is, what do you do, and so why do you do what you do? And what was the pivotal moment that took you down that path?
Yeah.
And that's the bit that I get more feedback from than anything else. That opening thing where people just open up about, what drove them down this path of doing what they do. Because it's like we've already covered, it's probably something to do with something they've experienced, and they want to help those sort of people so they don't make the same mistakes or whatever.
Definitely. And I think, like you said, you can't teach that at school. So if you took us back to 16 years old at school, if what did you have? You used to have like career advisors that would come in. But the career advisor never spoke to me about pursuing something that I was good at. It was always do this because it's good, do this because society wants you to do that, or let's look at what you are. No one ever sits down and goes, this is what you're good at, why you should go and thrive in doing that. So,
and also I don't think that, I can't never remember anybody suggesting that starting a business is a good idea.
No.
Because it's not that traditional path. I think that's one of the, we're going off a bit on a tangent here, but, when we go to school, there is very much a lean towards going down that academic route. And taking the step by step, primary school, secondary school, sixth form, and and then on to further education, and
then you go uni, then you get a job, and then you get married, and then you live until 65, and then you die.
So at some point, it's good to someone just to say to you, actually, there are lots of different options if you want to take them. That all you've got to do is decide that to go down that route. There's plenty of other people that have done it before you. Find somebody and ask them, and they'll put you, and then obviously they'll help you if they can.
Like you touched on then, the entrepreneur at school was the person in my day that was selling cigarettes or multi-pack cans of Coke and then trying to make a couple of quid.
Exactly.
He was getting told off. But now you go, actually, we need to pull him to the side and go, okay, so education might not be the best option for you, but you do have. He was almost told off for having those entrepreneurial skills.
Exactly. And they're so valuable, as you know. One of the things I've noticed is that, and I'm probably as guilty as anybody, is that we all have an idea about setting up a business and solving a problem. But the two things that always come up is that we don't really want to promote ourselves. And actually, when it comes to selling, we don't want to sell. No. So if you look around, most people call themselves a business coach, but actually what they actually are either very much sales orientated with regards to business coaching, or marketing focused, because they're the two biggest challenges for most business owners, entrepreneurs. So I've noticed that. And when it comes to being a business coach, they're not really covering how to run a business in many instances, which was part of the inspiration for sort of writing a book, is that, well, how do you start a business that will allow it to grow and ultimately set you free? So it's funny how there's different influences and people that you come across, but I can't remember coming across anybody who would actually tell you actually how to start a business, grow it through to a point where it might be sellable. I'm sure there's people out there, but so that's basically one of the inspirations with regards to writing my book.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time. And before we finish, where can we find you?
You can find me at thereluctantleader.academy, where you'll find all the details, contact details there. If you want to go directly to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook on the Reluctant Leader Academy Facebook page. So lots of places you'll find my stuff. And so feel free to connect. And obviously look out for my book.
Yeah, just for those that didn't know, there's a book imminently coming out. So really excited. Congratulations. And I hope that lots of good things happen for you on the back of the book. So well done. Something that I'm in the process of getting done. So yeah, I look up to someone who's actually gone and done it. So thank you for your words today, and thank you for being an inspirational man.
Thank you so much, Adam. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having us. And for more information, check out www.motivatemagazine.com. That's MO2VATE. And this will be found on YouTube under Motivate Mix podcast. Thank you, Mark, for your time today. Good luck with everything else that you got. Good luck with a winter full of writing books.
Yeah.
So take care, and we shall see you again soon.